we don't know how to feel about Micah Parsons in terms of picking a linebacker instead of getting the corners that went off the board, especially with the linebacker they got out of LSU later on. What is your philosophy on middle linebacker or linebackers these days, especially in this Dan Quinn defensive system?
Well, in the Dan Quinn, Pete Carroll system, the linebacker is critical. The Mike backer is one of the most critical components to the defense. I think you see it in Seattle with Bobby Wagner. You know, when they took Bobby Wagner in the second round, I think you can make the case that Bobby wasn't, overly instinctive, and he could run and he could make plays, but where was the fit? And I think, that's the same thing you can make for Parsons, and the fact that he can do a lot of things, attack the pocket. It gives their defense the ability to be faster. When your Mike's fast, your defense is fast. And in this scheme, your Mike has to be really fast because it's a zone concept, and you're going to have to be able to cover all the inside routes with the inside backer. And so he's not coming off the field. I mean, it's no longer, what down is it? It's what formation is it? And he's got to stay on the field for whatever the formation it is.
Michael, they now have a crowded linebacker room. They declined the option on Van Der Esch on Monday. You got Jalen Smith, who the fans don't love around here. We talked about Jabril Cox being drafted out of LSU. What do you think this means for Van Der Esch, for Jalen Smith, especially when you're playing nickel with two linebackers on the field to get all these guys playing time?
Well, look, I think that, again, I really believe downs don't matter. I think it's formations that matter. And so if you have an 11 personnel group on the field for the offense, one back, one tight end, you've got to have an 11 personnel defense. And that middle linebacker has to be able to play whether they're in 11, whether they're in 12, whether they're in 21. So I don't think it really looks like he's a nickel backer. I think it looks like he's going to play versus every formation. Because third down is no longer just a passing down. Every down's passing. So, what I think it spells is competition. I think it spells that, look, I know there's all sorts of services that say Jalen Smith's having this great season, but you watch the tape, and he really doesn't look like that. So I think he's getting competition, and I think that anybody who watches pro football with an acute eye understands that he's not the same player, and that maybe that drop leg does affect him at times.
Michael, if you were sitting there where they were at 12, or let's just say at 10, and the Bears, because the Bears gave a first-rounder up to get to 11 with the Giants, would you have gone down to 20? Or even if the Saints, because the Bills a couple years ago traded down from 20 to 10, from 10 to 27, and got 2 firsts for Mahomes, so you would have thought the Saints would have done the same to get up to get a quarterback. Would you have gone down for an added first or 2 added firsts and dropped that far in the first?
I think the problem with this draft was, especially for the Cowboys, you could go down to 20, and then who are you going to pick, a receiver? You want another receiver that's never going to get on the field? Because that's going to be the highest rated player on your board. The extra picks are nice. They turn into players. And the extra picks are wonderful, but you got to make sure you have a roster where you can get play time on those picks. And I think that was really the hard part. I think that if you traded down to 20, what were you going to get at 20? Were you going to get a rush end? Is that who you liked? Were you going to get a linebacker that you felt you were comfortable with? I don't think that's the case. So, you can cling to that extra 6th-round pick that you get this year and hang on to it. But in reality, you moved away from a good player, and that's probably the mistake. And in this draft, there was really, because it was so light on defensive players, you had to kind of stay in there and take the player you thought was the best.
Former NFL GM Michael Lombardi here on the home of the Cowboys with Shan and RJ. How did you and the different organizations that you worked in deal with the character guys? We have 3 question marks here with Micah Parsons and the hazing incident at Penn State, Kelvin Joseph leaving LSU for Kentucky, and then the worst of all, it looks like Josh Ball with domestic violence accusations. How did you guys in your organizations look at those types of picks?
Well, I think the owner sets the agenda, right? If some organizations I've worked for said, "Hey, look, domestic violence, we won't tolerate it. That's it. There's not going to be anybody that comes in here. I don't care what the situation is or what happened or innocence or guilt. Once there's a charge like that, once somebody strikes a woman, they're off the board." And so that comes from the owner. And then everything else is a line item case by case. You've got to look into it. Character's defined a lot of different ways. There's football character, then there's off the field character. And how important is football to the player? And what is his behavior like off the field? And you've got to get an accurate answer on that. You just can't go by what you read in the paper or what you hear from other people. You've got to really dig deep, because a lot of guys that have this alleged character rumor about them don't necessarily have bad character. Maybe they have somebody bad-mouthing them. You've got to evaluate the evaluator. It's the hardest thing to do in the draft. Discovering the talent, it's easy. Understanding the character is the hard part.